Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 77. Yes, you lucky people, that's 2 shows in 2 days, but don't get used to it, I'm just getting caught up. Today we have Robot of Sherwood to review, and I'll be looking at classic series showrunner Philip Hinchcliffe.
Damsels in distress, no pretty castles, no such thing as Robin Hood.
How can you be so sure he is not the real thing?
Because he can't be.
What do you say, outlaw? A final reckoning?
No.
Oh my god. Oh my god, it is, isn't it? Oh, you found him. You actually found Robin Hood.
That is not Robin Hood.
Well, then, who, sir, is about to relieve you of your next box?
Nobody, sir. Not in this universe or the next.
Well, then draw your sword and prove your words.
I have no sword. I don't need a sword. Because I am the Doctor. And this is my spoon. Hunger!
So what did you think of last night's episode, Robot of Sherwood?
Come here, you scrumptious little beauty. A box?
Doctor, what is it?
I've got mail.
First to feedback was Paul Blackhurst, who said, "Could have been very corny, but they did pull it off. There were some very good one-liners, and you can tell Peter Capaldi is enjoying himself in the role. Jenna Coleman was very good, and I even liked the way Tom Riley played Robin, apart from the laughing, and to top it all, a very nice little cameo, but I won't say any more on that one." Next up was Alan Pender, who wrote, "It was alright, loving Peter's take on the Doctor, and Robin Hood was well played." And last to feedback this week was Jeff Waddell, who commented, "Not the best, but better than I expected. Capaldi has nailed it. The dialogue is amazing." Thank you all for your thoughts, but to show what a diverse bunch we are in fandom, here are Theta's thoughts. My first observation with Robot of Sherwood was, where did the Doctor get Clara from? Didn't she leave the TARDIS for her date with Danny at the end of the last episode? But that's a minor detail. Once again we have the Doctor offering his companion the chance to go anywhere and anywhen, but this time it's something of a surprise choice. The pre-credit sequence for Robot of Sherwood sets the tone for this episode, inasmuch as this is clearly the cheap budget episode for the series. It's not exciting, it's not full of explosions and CGI, and the cliffhanger really comes as no surprise to the viewer. However, what held this viewer's attention was not the fact that Robin shot an arrow at the TARDIS, nothing new there given Lady Painfort's expert marksmanship with the bow in the 7th Doctor story Silver Nemesis. But given what we've learned about this new Doctor over the last couple of weeks, I wanted to see his reaction to Robin Hood. I love the TARDIS self-healing as the Doctor takes the arrow out of her, something that could have been easily missed by the casual viewer, but which underlines what an awesome ship the Doctor's Type 40 really is. The sword fight with the spoon was amazing, and still tells the viewer that while this Doctor is a hard-talking, hard-line Doctor, he is still apparently opposed to unnecessary violence, despite his near immediate want to punch Robin in the face for laughing at everything, but more of that later on. Good to see this Doctor get his comeuppance with a soaking as well. Ben Miller's Sheriff of Nottingham is truly magnificent, and if you'll forgive me going off topic for a moment, had Miller and not Keith Allen played the Sheriff of Nottingham in the BBC's 2006 Robin Hood reboot, that would have been amazing. The Doctor's continuing disbelief in Robin Hood and his men is borne out in the quite amusing scene where Robin introduces them one at a time while the Doctor takes varying samples from them to prove his theory that they're not real. When that fails, he questions Clara, and when she responds to his question of "When did you start believing in impossible heroes?" with "Don't you know?" it's then that Mark Gatiss hits the viewer over the head with the sledgehammer of his message for this episode. Now, I love when the Doctor Who delves into the realm of other fictional characters, and it usually does so really well, but for Gatiss to be patronising the viewer with this "he's not real" message, I find a little bit difficult to swallow. For me, the dungeon scene with the Doctor and Robin bickering as they find themselves captured was more than a little bit overdone. We already knew that this Doctor has an ego the size of a house, and this scene does little more than underline that again. Also got a question about the scene in the spaceship. If it's the robot spaceship, why do they blow the door off its hinges to get in? Surely they have access to their own ship? Lastly, the firing of the golden arrow to the ship. Surely if the ship needed the gold in its circuitry, then the fact that the arrow embedded itself in the outer shell wouldn't have made any difference to the ship's engines. And sadly, the episode finishes with Gatiss once again bashing the viewer over the head with his "The Doctor is a legend" line of thought. Now, I know I've had a whinge at the moment over Robot of Sherwood, but in truth it was a good, light-hearted piece of Doctor Who fluff. This was Season 8's equivalent of The Curse of the Black Spot, and probably shouldn't be taken as anything more than that. Although ironically I know that the same sizable section of fandom that was screaming for something more light-hearted after The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon was the same sizable section of fandom that moaned about it when they got it, so let's hope fandom has learned its lesson. Would I watch Robot of Sherwood again? Yes, I would, but this time around without my analytical face on. I'd sit back and enjoy it for the light-hearted, low-budget episode that it is, and probably still come out giving it a 6 or 7 out of 10. And so to the second in our look at Doctor Who's showrunners. This time we're looking at Philip Hinchcliffe. Now, why did I choose him over, say, John Nathan Turner? Well, mainly because Hinchcliffe is about to come to the forefront of Who fans' thoughts again very soon with the release of Big Finish audio box set Philip Hinchcliffe Presents. I'm hoping to get that box set when it comes out, and we'll be reviewing the stories therein on the show in the not too distant future. But for now, Philip Hinchcliffe, who was born on the 1st of October 1944, is a British television producer who brought shows including Private Schultz and The Charmer to the screen, but is probably best known for producing Doctor Who from 1974 to 1977. Hinchcliffe was educated at Slough Grammar School and Pembroke College, Cambridge, where he studied English literature. After a brief period working for a travel company and then as a teacher, he joined Associated Television in 1968, writing episodes for shows including soap Crossroads, then script editing the sitcom Alexander the Greatest, children's adventure series The Jensen Code, and children's drama series The Kids from 47A. In spring 1974, at the age of 29, he was approached by the BBC's head of serials to take over as producer on Doctor Who, his first full production job, initially trailing and then succeeding long-serving producer Barry Letts. Although he trailed Letts on Tom Baker's first story, Robot, he was first credited on The Ark in Space. Throughout his first year, he was mostly producing scripts that had been commissioned by the previous production team prior to their departure, and it wasn't until a year later that Hinchcliffe's full influence came to bear, with The Planet of Evil in late 1975, Tom Baker's second season in the title role. Hinchcliffe, together with editor Robert Holmes, ushered in a change in tone for the TV series. The series became darker and more adult than previously, with a gothic atmosphere influenced by the horror films produced by Hammer Films. This horror influence is especially evident in serials like Planet of Evil, Pyramids of Mars, The Brain of Morbius, The Hand of Fear and Talons of Wen-Chiang, all of which have content which directly recalls well-known horror novels and movies. Hinchcliffe was reluctant to use characters and monsters from the series past. The Daleks, the Cybermen and the Sontarans only appeared once during his tenure, and these stories were commissioned by Barry Letts. The Master and the Time Lords returned for one adventure, The Deadly Assassin, at the suggestion of script editor Robert Holmes, but they were portrayed very differently from their previous appearances. The character of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart and Unit were written out of the series. During Hinchcliffe's tenure, the programme achieved the peak of its popularity, and he produced more episodes to achieve more than 10 million viewers than any other producer in the series' history. Only during the Dalek Mania spell of the mid-60s had the series gained comparable popularity in the public consciousness. However, the BBC had received complaints from Mary Whitehouse of the National Viewers and Listeners Association that the series was unduly frightening for children and could traumatise them. The NVALA had been critical of the series since the beginning of the 1970s, and the complaints reached their height in the Hinchcliffe-produced Deadly Assassin, where an attempt is made to drown the Doctor at the end of an episode. While the BBC publicly defended the programme, after 3 seasons Hinchcliffe was moved on to the adult police thriller series Target in 1977, and his replacement Graham Williams was specifically instructed to lighten the tone of the storylines. The classic series never again achieved such consistently high viewing figures after Hinchcliffe's departure. Hinchcliffe also wrote several novelisations of Doctor Who serials for Target Books, adapting The Keys of Marinus, The Seeds of Doom and The Mask of Mandragora. After Doctor Who, Hinchcliffe worked on numerous series, single dramas and films, including Target, Private Schultz, The Charmer, Take Me Home, Friday on My Mind and many others. He stepped down from his producer role in 1995 after working on feature films An Awfully Big Adventure starring Hugh Grant and Total Eclipse starring Leonardo DiCaprio, but was engaged as an executive producer by Scottish Television from 1998 to 2001, overseeing series including Taggart and the John Hannah episodes of Rebus, and one-off dramas including The Last Musketeer with Robson Green. Hinchcliffe has made numerous appearances on DVD releases of Doctor Who serials made under his producership. His most notable appearance is in Serial Thrillers, a documentary included in the Pyramids of Mars DVD release, focusing on his 3-year reign as producer in some depth, examining what made the show so successful during that period. Most recently, an interview titled Life After Who was included on the Android Invasion DVD release, where daughter Selena Hinchcliffe takes her father on a trip down memory lane to recall his distinguished career in British television and film after his work on Doctor Who.
Oh, goodbye, my dear chap. I must say I've had the time of my lives.
And that's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and if you have any feedback I'd love to hear from you, either at respectthething@hotmail.com or on Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast on Facebook. Next week, as well as reviewing Season 8's
Listen!
I'll be looking at the showrunner responsible for bringing Doctor Who back to our screens nearly a decade ago, Russell T Davies. Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.